And yet, there's one thing. There's one thing to remember. And that was this book was it was selfish, if you will. It was my way of putting all these open-ended things to bed. You know, my brother died trying to create more stuff. He didn't have to do it. I don't know whatever reason prompted him to do it.
Did Alex Van Halen just choose sides in the ultimate rock war? When whispers spread that he's leaning toward David Lee Roth and leaving Sammy Hagar in the shadows, the Van Halen legacy explodes all over again. Loyalty, betrayal, and unfinished business collide in a showdown fans never saw coming. Alex Van Halen is once again at the center of rock and roll controversy, and this time the storm carries the unmistakable names of Sammy Hagar and David Lee Roth. For decades, fans of Van Halen have debated which frontman truly defined the band's identity, but now whispers of a deliberate snub have reignited one of classic rock's most passionate rivalries. The narrative unfolding behind the scenes feels less like a simple scheduling conflict and more like a calculated choice, a statement about legacy, loyalty, and who really represents the beating heart of Van Halen. And when Alex Van Halen makes a move, people notice. The tension reportedly surfaced during conversations about tribute plans, archival releases, and potential celebrations tied to the legacy of his late brother Eddie Van Halen. Ever since Eddie's passing, every decision connected to the Van Halen name has carried emotional weight. Fans have been hungry for unity, hoping to see surviving members stand together in honor of the music that changed rock history. But instead of unity, insiders suggest something colder, something sharper. A door that opened for David Lee Roth while quietly remaining closed to Sammy Hagar. To understand why this alleged snub feels explosive, you have to go back to the beginning. When Van Halen exploded onto the scene in the late 70s, it was Roth's flamboyant charisma colliding with Eddie's revolutionary guitar work that created lightning in a bottle. Albums became cultural milestones, stages became playgrounds. The band embodied danger, humor, virtuosity, and excess all at once. Roth wasn't just a singer, he was a spectacle, a ringmaster commanding chaos with a grin. Then came the fracture, creative tensions, ego clashes, different visions of the future. Roth exited and Sammy Hagar stepped in, ushering in a new era that brought commercial dominance and chart-topping ballads. Hagar's voice was powerful, emotional, more polished. Under his tenure, the band reached new heights in album sales and radio presence. Many fans discovered Van Halen through Hagar, not Roth. For them, the Red Rocker was not a replacement, he was the voice of their generation. So when rumors swirl that Alex Van Halen appears to be favoring Roth in key legacy conversations while sidelining Hagar, it doesn't just feel like a preference, it feels symbolic. It feels like rewriting history in real time. Because choosing one frontman over the other is not just about personality, it is about defining what Van Halen truly was. Sources close to the situation suggest that Alex has grown increasingly protective of the original era narrative, the raw, untamed spirit of the early albums, the chemistry that existed before fame magnified every crack. There is a belief that Alex sees Roth as inseparable from Eddie's most groundbreaking creative period. That era birthed the riffs that changed guitar playing forever. It established the mythology, and mythology is powerful currency. But Sammy Hagar has never shied away from speaking his mind. Over the years, he has been candid about feeling excluded from certain retrospective projects. He has expressed both love for the music and frustration about being left out of conversations that shape the band's legacy. Hagar's supporters argue that without his era, Van Halen would not have dominated the late 80s and early 90s the way they did. They point to sold-out tours, #1 records, and a catalog of hits that remain staples of classic rock radio. This is why the alleged snub feels so personal. It is not just a business decision. It touches pride. It touches identity. It touches decades of artistic investment. And fans are watching every move, dissecting every interview, reading between every line. Alex Van Halen, famously more reserved than his frontmen, rarely fuels drama publicly. He has often let the music speak louder than words. Yet silence can speak volumes. By appearing to align more closely with David Lee Roth in recent developments, whether intentional or not, he has sent a signal. In rock culture, signals matter. They shape narratives. David Lee Roth, for his part, carries his own complicated history with the band. His departures, returns, and reinventions have added layers to the Van Halen saga. But there is no denying the electric chemistry that once existed between him and Eddie. That chemistry is burned into vinyl grooves and concert memories. Perhaps Alex feels that honoring that original spark is the purest tribute to his brother's genius. Still, the optics are undeniable. Sammy Hagar remains a living, breathing chapter of the band's success story. Ignoring that chapter risks alienating a massive segment of the fan base. And in today's era of social media and non-stop commentary, fans do not stay quiet. They rally, they debate, they choose sides. The deeper question beneath this drama is about ownership. Who owns a legacy when the music belongs to millions? Does the founding drummer have the final say in defining the band's story? Or does the collective contribution of every era demand equal recognition? These are not simple questions. They cut to the core of how history is preserved. What makes this saga especially compelling is the emotional layer. Eddie Van Halen's absence looms large. Without him as the unifying force, old tensions seem more exposed. Eddie had worked with both singers, created magic with both singers, and maintained bonds that were complex but real. Now, with Alex standing as a guardian of the family name, every decision feels amplified. Fans crave closure, harmony, a sense that the surviving members can stand shoulder to shoulder. Instead, they sense fracture lines resurfacing. And controversy drives curiosity. Curiosity drives clicks. But beneath the headlines lies something more human: pride, loyalty, memory. As this story continues to unfold, one thing is certain: the Van Halen legacy is too powerful to fade quietly. Whether Alex Van Halen's actions represent a definitive snub or simply a strategic alignment, the ripple effect is undeniable. The debate over Roth versus Hagar has been reignited with fresh intensity. And in the world of rock and roll, old rivalries never truly die. They just wait for the next
The alleged
spark.
divide between Alex Van Halen, Sammy Hagar, and David Lee Roth is not simply tabloid noise. It reflects decades of layered relationships, bruised egos, artistic triumphs, and unresolved tension inside Van Halen. When fans dissect this moment, they are really revisiting a saga that has defined classic rock for nearly half a century. Sammy Hagar's era brought a different emotional texture to the band. His songwriting leaned into melody and vulnerability, expanding Van Halen's reach beyond party anthems into power ballads that dominated arenas and airwaves. Tracks from that period still ignite massive sing-along moments at festivals and classic rock gatherings. Hagar did not replace Roth's flamboyance. He redirected the energy into something more anthemic, more polished, arguably more commercially explosive. David Lee Roth, however, represents the untamed origin story, the lean years, the club circuits, the explosive breakthrough that turned Eddie Van Halen into a guitar deity. For purists, that raw chemistry is sacred. It is lightning captured at the exact moment before it could be controlled. Roth's swagger, unpredictable humor, and theatrical bravado became inseparable from the band's image. When fans imagine the word Van Halen, many still see Roth leaping across the stage in glitter and spandex. Alex Van Halen stands uniquely positioned between those worlds. As co-founder and rhythmic backbone, he lived every rehearsal, every backstage argument, every triumph. His perspective is not that of an outsider analyzing history. It is that of a brother who built an empire from scratch alongside Eddie. If he leans toward Roth in shaping the official narrative, it may stem from emotional gravity rather than personal rejection of Hagar. Yet emotion does not erase perception, and perception drives controversy. When insiders suggest that Hagar was not given equal footing in certain legacy discussions, fans interpret it as exclusion. In rock culture, loyalty matters. Recognition matters. A perceived snub becomes a rallying cry. Hagar has built his own empire beyond Van Halen, cultivating a devoted fan base and thriving entrepreneurial ventures. He is far from dependent on the band's brand for relevance. Still, the Van Halen chapter remains a defining part of his musical identity. Being sidelined from its evolving story can feel like having pages torn from a book he helped write. David Lee Roth's relationship with the band has also been turbulent, marked by dramatic exits and triumphant returns, but there is an undeniable symbolic weight to the original lineup. In the mythology of rock bands, the founding configuration often holds sacred status. Alex may see preserving that image as protecting the essence of what he and Eddie first created. There is also the reality that grief reshapes priorities. Since Eddie's passing, Alex has reportedly taken a more introspective stance about how his brother's legacy should be framed. He may feel that centering the early years honors the purest creative bond they shared. That does not necessarily diminish Hagar's contributions, but it changes the spotlight. Fans remain divided. Social media threads explode with passionate arguments. Some insist that without Hagar's era, Van Halen would not have sustained its dominance. Others argue that the band's revolutionary spark burned brightest with Roth. Both sides present compelling cases. Both sides hold genuine emotional attachment. The drama persists because Van Halen was never just a band. It was a phenomenon. It reshaped guitar technique, stage theatrics, and the very sound of arena rock. When a legacy that powerful faces internal friction, it becomes headline material instantly. Perhaps the real tragedy is not the rivalry itself, but the absence of Eddie as mediator. He navigated complex relationships for decades, sometimes successfully, sometimes not. With him gone, the balancing force is missing. Alex now carries the responsibility alone, and every choice he makes echoes louder than ever. In the end, whether Alex Van Halen truly snubbed Sammy Hagar or simply followed his emotional compass, the conversation reveals how deeply fans care. It shows that the music still matters enough to spark debate years later. It proves that the Van Halen name still ignites passion. Legacies are fragile. They are shaped not only by music, but by memory and narrative. As Alex aligns himself with David Lee Roth in the public eye, intentionally or otherwise, he is helping sculpt the final chapters of a story that defined generations. And while fans may argue endlessly about which singer was superior, the truth is that both eras left indelible marks on rock history. The rivalry fuels intrigue, but the music endures beyond it. And perhaps that is the ultimate twist in this ongoing saga. No matter who stands closer to Alex Van Halen today, the songs created with both Sammy Hagar and David Lee Roth continue to thunder through speakers worldwide, reminding everyone why this band's legacy refuses to fade.